Welcome to the Niche Pursuits Podcast. Are you ready to discover some niche business ideas that actually work? Well, it's time for a motivational kick to jumpstart your next big idea. Here's your host, Spencer Hawes.
Hey everyone, it's Spencer Hawes here with NichePursuits.com, and welcome back to the podcast. Today we've got a great episode for you. In fact, I have an interview with Scott Voelker from TheAmazingSeller.com. I've actually been listening to Scott for a few months now. Once I started diving into the whole Amazon FBA business, I discovered his podcast. I started listening in, mostly because I can tell he's a really down-to-earth, genuine guy. I liked his style. He's always providing a lot of really valuable information. He shares his tips that's working very well for him and how people specifically can apply that in their own business. So I've learned a lot listening to his podcast. So wanted to have him on. He's somebody that started in the Amazon FBA business about 9 months ago, 10 months ago, something like that. Late last year, I believe, is when he started actually selling on Amazon. And he's been able to ramp up his business relatively quickly. He's now doing somewhere in the mid-30s, low to mid-30s, $1,000 in revenue generated. And then actual net profit, he explains that here on the podcast, around $10,000 to $15,000 per month. So he's making a great net profit. And he's done a good job of launching products. And specifically on this, during this interview, we're going to talk a lot about how to pick a winning product, how to look at the Amazon bestseller rank to determine how many products it might be selling per day, what your targets should be, how to look at the overall depth of a market and to see if that's something that you should go into, and then specifically how to launch a product and use Amazon PPC, and how to get your initial set of reviews and why that's important. And overall, just a lot of great tips that hopefully you can take away and apply into your own business. Scott's a great guy. I really enjoyed doing this interview with him, and hopefully you as well will enjoy the podcast, enjoy the interview, and can find some things that you can apply into your own business as well. So with that, enjoy the interview. Thanks a lot. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Niche Pursuits podcast. I'm your host, Spencer Hawes from NichePursuits.com. And as usual, I've got my co-host with me, Perrin, out in Chicago. Perrin, how you doing today?
I'm feeling good, man. How's it going, everybody?
Feeling good.
Yeah.
Awesome. No, that's good. It's a good day because we've actually got a guest with us, and not just any guest, but somebody that has come onto the Amazon FBA scene, the podcasting scene, and has just exploded here in the last 6 to 8 months. It's Scott Voelker from TheAmazingSeller.com and the podcast of the same name. So, Scott, welcome to the podcast.
Well, thanks a lot for having me. Longtime listener too, by the way, and I'm also a customer. So, yeah, thanks. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. No, we appreciate that, you coming on. It's always nice to hear that people have been reading my blog and listening to my podcast as well. So it's kind of cool that we're crossing paths now here with the whole Amazon FBA business.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that is what I want to dive into primarily, is just what you're doing over there on Amazon, what's working well for you, and maybe give some listeners some tips how they can get started as well. But before we get started discussing Amazon FBA, can you give us an idea of what you were doing in your business before you ever discovered Amazon, or, what were you doing with yourself?
Yeah, well, and I'll do a quick version because obviously us entrepreneurs, we've been at it for a long time. But yeah, I've been online now for over 6.5, 7 years. And basically I started selling stuff on eBay, I think like everyone. And that validated to me that money was being transferred online. And then from there, my wife and I owned a photography studio for quite a few years. We built that into a 6-figure business, one of the well-known ones around the County area. And then we had our third child and just figured out, we just didn't have enough time in the day because we had clients at night. Because in photography, if you're doing outside sessions, you got to time the lighting and the rain and all that stuff. So we were only having one customer paying good money, but it was locking up our evenings. We had the new baby. So I said, there's got to be something else we can supplement. So I started looking online. I knew eBay was kind of going. So we just started selling some things kind of like thrifting and stuff just to kind of get the ball rolling and validated it. And then I started thinking, why couldn't I just sell like some of my card templates and my, wedding templates and stuff like that in Photoshop? And that's really where it all started. And then from there that I validated that, I seen that people needed help starting a business. And, we weren't formally trained. So I just took that knowledge, I kind of bundled it up and started selling that online and then built that into a 6-figure business relatively quickly. My first launch, I think, did like $12,000 or $13,000, which I was blown away by. And that was like in a day. So, it just validated it. And then, as an entrepreneur, as there's opportunities all around us. And it's really, how do you contain that? And it's really, that's the challenge. And I still struggle with that every day. But found you, started building out, trying to build out some niche sites. Some of them, got traffic, made a little bit of money, but nothing really that I could, I didn't put enough energy into it because I was impatient, because I'm just an impatient guy. I want to see results as quick as possible. And then Amazon, I knew that, I was following your buddy Chris Guthrie for a little while as well. And he was doing crazy numbers with Amazon as being an affiliate, at like 6% or something. It didn't really excite me because there just wasn't enough margin there for all of the work to build the site. But I knew that it was possible. So I dabbled in it, but then I might have lost interest. But then I started seeing that people were selling physical products, and that FBA, fulfilled by Amazon. I'm like, that's the closest thing to a digital product that's out there. Like literally, like how can you source a product, label it? No one else is going to be able to compete with you. I didn't even look into retail arbitrage like a lot of people were doing. To me, that was just too much work. Like going into a store. I think I did it for like an hour. I went into a store and I'm like, let's see how easy this is. And I brought in my phone. I scanned a couple things. I go, screw this. I'm out of here. I'm going to go back to what I know what's easier and what works. And so I swore I would not do that. And so my wife and I decided, because it is an investment when you're doing FBA, you got to invest some money. And I just went ahead and started really gobbling up all the information that I could on it. I followed Ryan Moran, followed him, and just listened to his podcast. I listened to any episode out there that was on Amazon FBA. I was trying to tune into, and that's really how I figured it out. And just because I had the online business knowledge, I just adapted that to a listing. And to, writing good ad copy and, good images and, that type of stuff. And then just learning the whole process and the ecosystem as far as like what it was. And then I just said, you know what, I'm going to go all in here and give it a shot. And we did. And I literally I think it was the first, and we'll talk about the product research stage, but I mean, in the first 90 days, I think I did just about 40K in revenue generated. Wow. So that validates that it worked,
Yep, absolutely. No, that's awesome. I mean, there are a lot of, I find the same thing that you found, that there's a lot of transferable skills from all this online knowledge that I've had from building websites and writing sales copy and, creating a great online sort of presence that transfers right over to Amazon, doing that same thing. So for my listeners, I just started, a few months ago as well, and I've been able to get up and running, shown a lot of great progress, I think, early on to validate the business for myself. So I'm quite excited to dive in a little bit more.
Yeah. Let me just say though, I tune into a lot of different podcasts, and I'm kind of, you might be like I am. I'm skipping around trying to find something that's going to pertain to my situation now. Right. And I started scrolling through yours and I'm like, oh, cool. He's got something on FBA. So I hit you. And then when I hit you, I started hearing about what you guys were doing. And I'm like, he'd be a great guest on my podcast, and he'd be someone that would be just great to just kind of like, get ideas from, and we can kind of bounce ideas off of. So that's really why I reached out to you, was because I seen that you were starting to get into it. And now that I had a podcast, which again, people that don't know, I started the podcast because I wanted to reach people like you that were already selling, that I could then learn from, but then also share. And I could continue to have this steady flow of I guess like a big giant mastermind in a sense, right?
Yeah.
That we could all kind of come together and help each other and hold nothing back. I mean, my podcast, I reveal everything, it's just the way how I did it, and it's worked. But yeah, so I just found your podcast. I seen that you guys were doing it, and I'm like, he'd be a great interview to have on, and the guests would love him. And then that's where I reached out to you, and here I am on yours, and I'm going to have you on mine a little bit further down the line, which, that's what you wanted. But yeah, I was ready to have you on, but You just wanted a little bit more data to have in on. But
exactly.
But yeah, I mean, it's just that's how it works, right?
It's really cool. It's kind of dangerous though. You get a bunch of entrepreneurs talking together and talking about big ideas. We all might throw each other off. We're gonna be doing some crazy things if we're not careful.
You're not kidding.
That's the way it kind of goes. You all sort of talk and you end up with some big idea and you're off in left field before you know it.
Totally true.
So, but it's great.
Yeah.
No, but to give people an idea of what type of success you're doing right now, and I know you reveal your revenue and income numbers on your podcast, but maybe just give it an idea of the revenue that you're doing on a monthly basis and the net profit that you're seeing from Amazon.
Yeah. And I like to say this too, a lot of people that are publicly saying numbers out there, they're saying generated revenue, or revenue
Right.
generated. And they don't say the main point. I mean, like hearing Chris Guthrie did 2 million in sales, right, on Amazon, but he took 6%, right? It's still good, but 2 million sounds really good, right?
Yes.
So, I like to just give people that, and I'm totally upfront with that because, and my numbers might look small to people, but to me, it's, my goal was to be able to make 10 grand a month profit. That was my goal. Can I make 10 grand a month? And that would be just another revenue stream on top of everything else that I'm doing. And that was my goal. But right now that has happened and it's actually done better than that. And right now we're in the summer months too. You got to remember that. I think that you would attest to that usually summer months are lower on traffic, I guess, depending on the market. I mean, if you're in barbecuing and grilling and stuff, it might be more popular, or camping, but in the same breath, it's usually down in numbers. But yeah, I mean, I've done on the average, I'm averaging now, but I just reported this. I believe my last report was just under 35,000 in revenue generated. And from that, I think it was about just under 40%. And I've been as high as 43 or 44%. My goal is to get it to a 50%, but really from that, so you're looking at between like 13 and 15K pocket that you could put in your pocket if you chose to, and which I don't recommend doing that right off the bat. I think you should take some of that money and putting it back into the business. But yeah, so if you wanted to say, okay, you bought product, you sent it in, you made money after your pay-per-click cost, after any other expenses, FBA fees, all that stuff, I was left with about between 13 and 15K.
That's a really great number. I know back when I was working my full-time job, I thought I was doing pretty well, enough to afford a house.
Sure.
I have 3 children and we're living just fine. And I can tell you that I was not making 10 to 15K, at my old corporate job. So a question that a lot of people have, and to be honest, I want to hear your criteria for picking a winning product. I've picked a product, if you will, a category, and I'm going to be looking to go back and reinvest. And I'm just wondering if you have sort of a formula for what do you do to research and actually pick a product to go after?
Yeah, and those are great questions. And I think that's if we all knew the answer to that, we would all be millionaires because we could sell that formula.
That's right.
But I do have a close formula that I could give you. And I've got some things that I've learned along the way by mistakes that I've made, because I do have one product that I did release that I made a little bit of a mistake. I didn't test the market as far as I didn't look at the depth of the market. I think that's one thing I'd like to tell people right off the bat is it's not just about picking the winning product. It's about picking the depth in a market and seeing if you can come somewhere in there. It's almost like being ranked on Google, in the top 10, if there's a spot that you think you can wiggle your way into and there's still volume there. With Amazon, it's the same thing. It's just you're looking at different numbers, different criteria. But basically, I like to look at products that are small. I don't like to look at products that are oversized. I think you had mentioned that you were possibly doing oversized stuff, which is, congrats to you. The market will be smaller for you as far as people coming in on you, which is a good thing, but it's definitely more hoops to jump through.
Yep, I am doing an oversized product, but yes, there are some more hoops to jump through. In particular, you have less inventory volume, size of inventory that you can store and other things. But
yeah,
yep, I can already see generally that a smaller product is probably a better idea.
Yeah, well, you know what though? I've got another guy that I actually interviewed, and he really did the same thing that you're talking about, and he did it on a small scale. So some people say, how much money should I need? Do I have to start and all this? And people can give you all different ranges, but he literally just said, I'm going to take, and buy an oversized item on AliExpress. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to sell it, make the money. I'm going to basically flip that product, take the money, reinvest it in 2 more, buy them, sell them. So it was a slow process, but now he's up to where he's buying pallets from that same kind of strategy. So anyway, going back to your question, is the actual formula for me is I like to make sure that a product is between like $19 and like $45 or $50. Like I like it in that price range. Now, some people will say, well, Scott, I found a product that's $17.99. Is that okay? It's fine. It's like if the margins work, but it's just kind of like a guide. So I like $19 to $45. I like it to be a small, light product under 2 pounds, usually can fit into a shoebox. That's my first criteria there. And then I also just like to look at the sales volume in the BSR, the bestseller rank. For those that are listening don't know what that is, but it's really just a ranking that that Amazon gives that particular product. And from there, you can kind of get a gauge as to how well that is selling. But I like to look at not just the first and second and third listing. I like to look at like the 7th and 8th and see if there's volume there. And I've got something that I call the 10 by 10 by 1 strategy, which is basically finding a product that'll generate $10 profit, 10 units sold a day for one product. So there's your 10 by 10 by 1. That equals $100 profit for the day. And I try to find those. So if I can come in and grab 10 sales per day on a market that's deep and come in at the 6th or 7th spot, then I'm good with that because there's less competition and it's a lot easier to do. So that's part of it. The other thing I do look at too is the reviews. So I'll look at all of the reviews as far as like how many they have. And, if the first or second one has like 800 reviews, I'm okay with that as long as I can go down the list and see that there's some that have 300 reviews or 150 reviews. And then from there, I still know that those have volume in there still that I could still get the 10 sales. But then in the end, it really comes down to your gut. Like you have to take a chance. You got to pull the trigger. You got to get one going. And I can almost say this, if you do your research properly, it's really hard to have a failure. Now, a failure might be, well, I'm only selling 2 or 3 a day, but it's still not a failure. You learned a lot in the process and you were able to still get a product that's going to generate 2 to 3 sales a day on autopilot in a sense. And all you got to do is fulfill the inventory.
All right. Awesome criteria and a lot of criteria that we could probably dig into quite a bit more. And I want to do that just a little bit. So you talked about the bestseller rank, the BSR, and your 10 by 10 by 1. Is there a BSR number of, 1,000 or less, or what's the criteria there? Does it depend on the category?
It does.
Yeah. I mean, how do you determine that, okay, this is selling 10 products a day and, might be doing, $10 a day or whatever in profit.
Yeah.
Or per sale.
Yeah. Okay. So, and here's the thing. Every category is different, and they're updating them all the time. So depending on the sales volume that's coming in and out of that category is going to determine the number. But what I could say is, well, the first thing I'll say is your first product, if you're going to do this, you also want to go into where you can figure up that you're going to have a product line. So your first product is going to be probably the hardest, and then creating the products that are going to be spin-offs of that product that you can sell to the same customer. Now you kind of know because you've already established that criteria or you've got the number. So if you're in a certain category, let's say home and kitchen, and you're generating 10 sales a day and you know that your BSR is 3,000 or 5,000, then when you start to look for other products doing your research, then anything that's in that, I guess those numbers that are the same as yours, then that you've got a 10 per day product. Now, if you don't have that criteria in the beginning, it's a little bit harder. And there's a couple different strategies that you could do to kind of figure that out. And the first one that I would say, and I don't know if you guys have heard of the 999 one where you put in the inventory to kind of see how many they have in stock. Have you?
I have heard of that, yeah.
Okay. Have you mentioned it before? You want me to mention it again?
I don't think I have mentioned it on the podcast, so please do.
Yeah. Well, basically the way it works, and it can only work with someone that has 1,000 units or less, or under 1,000 units. So it's 999 units or less. And basically what you do here is you go to your competitor that you're looking at, possibly, selling a similar product. And then you go and you add their product to the cart. You go and you add 999. And then from there, if it doesn't have 999, let's say it has 990, well, then it's going to come back and say there's only 990 available. So basically, it just told you that they have 990 in stock. Now you make a note of that. Let's say it's at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And then the following day at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, you go back to that same listing, you put in 999, and you do the same thing again, and now it has 980 units. And now you go, okay, they just sold 10 in a 24-hour period. So that's a way that you can do it. The only problem with that, there's 2 different problems with that. The first problem is that sometimes Amazon will hold inventory or they'll put it in fulfilled, and so it's kind of like not true in 100%. The other thing that could happen is you could have a seller that replenishes, or they hold inventory and they replenish inventory every other day or something. So it could be skewed. Now, here's the thing though. If you're going after like the low hanging fruit, the less competitive type stuff, the stuff that isn't so like everyone's trying to sell it, you're probably not going to run into those little issues because they're not going to be doing anything behind the scenes to make their inventory go up or down. Because sometimes if you're running a promotion, which we could talk about that in a little while if you want, but you can secure your inventory, like almost like create a shipment for that inventory, but really don't ship it. And that just locks up your inventory. So the inventory doesn't get released, which is a little bit more advanced. But just to understand that this technique, the 999 thing, it's accurate, kinda. And I would just use that as a quick gauge. But I definitely look at myself personally in almost any category that I'm looking at. I would say that if you find a BSR that's like 6,000 or below, then you're probably looking at 10 units a day, depending. You know what I mean? So, and again, some markets it might be 13,000, because it's got more volume running through that, like maybe beauty does. But you might be in like home and gardens, and that one might be lower, and that one might be, I don't know, that one could be 2,000 would be selling 10 a day. So it's really kind of hard to say exactly. Now, and I don't know if you guys are using Jungle Scout at all. Are you using that particular tool?
I am familiar with it.
It's I don't know how I would do it without it now. It saves a ton of time because normally what you're doing is and you guys I know are aware of this, but you guys are pretty much going into your top 10 listings, let's say. You're clicking into that listing. You're scrolling down to the BSR. You're making notes on that BSR. You're putting it into a spreadsheet or something. And then you're looking at the reviews. You're calculating that, putting that in a spreadsheet, looking at the amount of money that it's selling for, put that in a spreadsheet. Look at the review number as far as for the score, like a 4.7 or something, right? Well, with Jungle Scout, you go into Google Chrome, you punch up that same list of 10 or 16 that's on that page. You click the little icon and boom, it all populates for you. So it's like them digging into the listings for you and giving you all of the data. So I'm a big fan. I did an interview actually with Greg Mercer, which is on my podcast. If you want to mention it later, it was episode 56, which he talks about his whole criteria on picking a product and all that stuff too. But yeah, so that's a huge advantage. But again, you can do it without the tool. It just takes more time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. That's a great tool that people can use. Anything that can save time is huge. I know at least in my business and a lot of different things that I do, if I can find some software that will automate things for me that just makes the sort of analytic process quicker, that's money to me. And so, no, great tips there. Perrin, do you want to jump in here? Was there anything in that criteria that Scott talked about for kind of picking a winning product that you wanted to dive a little bit deeper?
Not specifically, but I'm curious to know about your evolution, just getting into Amazon FBA and then to where you are now, because we have a lot of readers who are just starting to try this. So sure. I'm wondering, before you had all this knowledge, how did your first product selection go? And then what's the difference between then and now?
Okay. Here's the thing. When I first went into this, I was going in at I wanted a product that would do 20 units a day at $10 profit. So a couple $100 a day. That's what I was looking at. That would have been a huge success for me. And that's what I was planning. And, I got to be honest, when I first did my research, I think I changed my product 3 times. And there wasn't the reason that I didn't think the product would sell. It was I didn't know if I wanted to go into that market, because my belief was if I was ever going to create a blog around this, or if I was ever going to have the product myself, I'd want to be able to use it. I didn't want to just be a product to sell to make money. I wanted it to actually be something that I would personally use and that I would also be able to maybe write about or maybe talk about. And that's, so I changed my criteria. For example, I think my first product that I was looking at, not the specific product, but I was looking at the baby market. And I'm like, it's a huge market. There's a ton of potential there, but I'm like, I just don't know if I want to go down that road, because it's not part of my life right now. So it's kind of hard. And, not that people couldn't do it and people haven't done it, but just me personally, I just didn't want to go down that particular road. So I changed midstream. And my first product, I got to be honest, I kind of planned it perfectly where I knew that the market was going to be going up. And again, another little tip here for people, when you are doing product selection, I would also look at Google Trends. Look at Google Trends and see what that product or that keyword for that product has done over the past year or past 2-3 years, and see if you see any spikes, because you may be either coming on a downward spike or you might be getting ready to do a big spike. And if you're doing that, there might be a really good spot to time it. So when you do get it going, you do all of the groundwork. When the busy season comes, which is usually fourth quarter, then boom, you're off to the races. And that's kind of what I think contributed to my success, because my product did definitely have a peak, in the fourth quarter and a little bit even after the fourth quarter. So because of that, I really think that I was able to get the ball rolling, but then I really was able to keep it going. And even now, even though I think that it's not a seasonal product, but it's definitely something that's used more certain times of the year, but it's still more of a steady. But, I just really wanted, again, to pick something that I felt was going to have the entire year covered and not just spiked one time and then drop right off and then find the next product for another season. But yeah, I mean, the first product, I kind of hit a home run in a sense. The second product, I didn't hit so much of a home run. I still think that product, I think I missed the boat on that one a little bit. And I'm still right now, I say it's a failure. I'm still probably selling between 3 and 5 units a day. So, I wanted that one to do 10 units a day, which I still think it will. It's just the time of year. I think it'll do better at certain times. And the demand in that market wasn't as big as I thought. I think there's probably only enough for probably 3 or 4 sellers. But then my fourth product, which has variations, then I played around with variations, which is a whole nother topic. But with being able to add variations really just kind of almost like a blog with extra content on it. It gives you more areas to be able to create real estate in a sense, and then have people be led back, and you can have different price points and all that stuff. But I don't know if that really answered your question too much, Perrin, but
yeah, it did.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's kind of my thought process. My thought process now really is like 10 units a day. That's like, I don't go after 20 to 30. I mean, I think it will happen. I think people, if they shoot for 10 and then they have 3 other products that are related to that, I think that'll help drive up that 10 to 20.
For sure. And so let's talk about variations real quick. And I know it's a super in-depth thing, but we've talked a little bit about it on a couple of our recent podcasts. But maybe you can give us some insight about what you mean by variations, just for the new listener, and
Sure.
maybe like a quick and dirty process for how you come up with those and why they work.
Yeah, well, and there's all different kinds. A variation could be small, medium, large. It could be red, blue, green. It could be colors. It could be bundles. I'm a big fan of bundles. I've got a buddy of mine that is selling, a product that can be bundled. And so, for example, if you have an item that people would buy more than one of, or maybe come back to buy again, then even if you come in at a lower price, like let's say you came in at like that one price is $10, but yet you can create a bundle of 3 of those in a package and offer that as a 3-pack. And now that's $19.95. And then you can order, and then you can have a 5-pack, which might be $29.99 or maybe $27.95. So again, it's almost like that price anchoring thing where you can then show up for $9.99 to $29.99. And then it gets people to click on your thing because they think they can buy it for $9.99, which they can. But then once they get into the listing, it's like, that's a better value. So I might as well go with the better value because I'm going to need it eventually anyway. So that's really the power of variations. And that's really my strategy going in with my third product, was being able to come up with, singly purchased and then a bundle. So you can buy you can buy 3 different ones, but separately, and they're a little bit different each one, and they each do a little bit of a different thing. But then but then you can buy all 3 of them together if you want, and there's a little bonus in that as well. It's kind of like a kit, as we talked about before. So that's kind of how that works, and that's why I like it, because it's almost like that. I don't want to call it like what do they call it in like a supermarket when they get you the lost leader or whatever, but it's kind of in a sense where it gets you to want to click into there because you see the lower price. And then once you get in there, you see the better value. And that's really the variations as far as how I like to use them.
Yep. No, that's great. And that makes a lot of sense, I think. Something that Perrin and I have talked about quite a bit, and of course on the podcast, is uniqueness of products. So, a lot of people talk about private labeling, right? And they're essentially the products already exist on Amazon and you're just creating a duplicate, if you will. You're just private labeling your own product and putting another listing up there. Is that what you're doing, or are your products unique in any way?
No, actually, they're not. They kind of are. On the third one, it kind of is, but not enough to where you would say like you could patent it or something like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
I usually tell people it's not so much about, I mean, yes, if you can do something where it's unique, and again, making it unique would be listening to like reading the reviews of all of your competitors and seeing what people are complaining about and then making that in your product. I think that would be the best way to go about that. But really a simple, easy way to do it. And again, I think you could start off that way of just taking a product and then obviously you're going to do better marketing, maybe better images. So I would look at the listing. That's another thing that I do in my research is I look at the listings and I see if they have any holes in them. So if they have bad images, or if the images, there's only 2 images and there's only 2 bullet points and there's very little description, their headline is terrible or any of that stuff. So I look at that as an opportunity as well. It's part of my criteria, which we didn't really mention, but that is something that I look at. But I think that what a lot of people could do that aren't is not just put together an ebook and put in there, right? If you want to do something, either have a DVD printed or have a guide actually printed and put in there. A full size like type of guide that's actually printed. You know, it's going to cost you a little bit of money, but it's going to allow you to then create just more perceived value on that product. So that's what I feel people can do that aren't doing. I've got someone right now that I'm actually, one of my students that I'm teaching this to is basically done exactly what we just said, where he's taken 2 products that people normally buy separately and kind of combine the 2 together because they're going to buy them together anyway, but they're just going to buy them separately. And he did that. And I mean, he went from nothing to launching to now he's doing about 45 sales a day just from doing that because it's a better value. I just think being creative with the accessories. And the other thing is if you found 2 accessories that aren't made by the same manufacturer, it adds a little bit of complexity to it. You have to now package those 2 things together because now you got to make it where it's one SKU. By doing that, it makes it harder for someone to find the exact same thing, because it's not coming from the same factory. You find one from one factory, one from another factory, then you're able to merge those 2 together. And now someone that wants to piggyback on your listing, or they want to come in and try to, be a competitor, it's going to be harder for them to do that. So that's one strategy that definitely works.
Yep, absolutely. Moving away from, picking the product. Let's say that, people have been able to sort of pick a product, they're ready to go, and, at least I feel like I'm going to skip the whole manufacturing process. At least for me, I'm more interested in hearing about, launching the product and getting initial sales, that sort of thing. That is just so critical. And I feel like, you've certainly done it with your own products, and I know you talk about launching products. Can you give us a sort of rundown of what a successful launch looks like?
Yeah. And again, I think it comes down to your market and how competitive you're going into. I think, Greg Mercer said on my podcast, he basically said that, he literally takes a product, he puts it up, he obviously has good images and good headings and all of the main optimization type stuff. He runs a little bit of pay-per-click to it, gets a couple of reviews going, and he just sets it and forgets it and gets 10 sales a day. I mean, because he's going after the right product with, again, almost like your long tail keyword, right? You don't have to try so hard, and you don't have people out there trying to compete with you because they want to sell 50 units a day. Basically, the launch process is really simple. And this is what I've talked publicly on the podcast and I've, shared with other people it's really simple once your product is in, you want to be ready, set, and go. Like you want to be ready to go ahead and start getting sales on like day one. So like I have something I call the pre-launch phase, which is where I'll build a list of, my friends and family. And I know some people have said, well, that's not good because it's really just the base of reviews is all I'm looking for. And even if they're unverified, I mean, Amazon is still okay with that, where you can have an unverified review. And it basically just means that, someone could have went into your shop and bought it, in a brick and mortar store. And then there they could have left your review for you. But the thing is, it's not going to be verified. It's just going to say unverified. And there should be a little disclaimer in there. Like, I was given this product to, test and give my honest review. So, to me, that's that's fine in the beginning to get your base reviews, get like 5 to 10 reviews. And then once you get those reviews and you start getting regular sales, now your regular reviews are going to then go on top of those other reviews and really kind of bury them in a sense. But you're really only looking for those stars. You're just looking for the social proof element of the stars up in the box so you can turn on pay-per-click. I'm a huge fan of pay-per-click. I think it's way underutilized, and there's so many things that you can do to do exactly what you guys have talked about for years now, as far as just finding those keywords that no one else is bidding on or that people aren't optimizing for and finding sales through them. That's really the whole process. Now, do I go out and get, a 25 or 50 reviews, post a coupon code? I have done that, and I will still do that. Because I believe that, getting to like the 50 review mark is like, that's when it really starts to take traction, especially if you're only competing with, listings that have like maybe 300 or less. And once you get to that 50 review mark, it just kind of makes you a little bit more established. That's just my own belief. So, I'll do it really. I've done it all different ways, but I mean, Thomason is a free site. It's a blogging platform that connects you with other bloggers that want to review products. So you'll also get a backlink, which you guys are all fans of. And you'll get a backlink from their site pointing to your listing, which could help in the SEO part of this process to try to rank your Amazon listing, which I wouldn't go after doing that purposely, but it would still maybe naturally happen because the people on Thomason, they're bloggers that are looking to test free products. Now, some of them are there just to get free product and they put up a bogus blog. But the beautiful thing with it is you get to pick who you want to do it. So you can kind of do some back search. You can look at their social, presence. You can do all of that stuff. And I believe right now Thomason has like a 30-day free trial. So, I mean, I've gotten myself like 40 reviews, I think, from doing a simple promotion over like 4 days. I think I gave 10 units away for like 5 days or something like that. And I've got other friends in the business that I've become friends with in this, and they've done it, and they've done 75 reviews because they have a different product in a different market. So again, it's product or it's market specific, but that's just a free way of doing it. But I just really look at that. I look at getting the product up there optimized as soon as possible. Like I'll actually put the product listing up, optimize it before my product's even in, and then I just let it sit there until I get the inventory. Then I ship in the inventory. Once it's live, then I go ahead and get the few reviews. And then from there, I immediately go in and start turning on pay-per-click. And then I just start driving sales through there. And if you want, we can talk a little bit about pay-per-click if that's the direction you want to go down.
Yeah, I have a couple follow-up questions for that. So
sure.
The first one is, can you compete with people with 300 reviews if you only have 50 reviews? And the second one is, what type of pay-per-click are you talking about?
Yeah. Okay. Great question. Can you compete with someone if they have 300 reviews and 50? Absolutely. And I did it. I mean, I'm proof of that. I mean, I literally started with 0, and I think I slowly got to 50. But my competitors had 300-400. So yes, totally is, because it's, a lot of times what happens, and here's a mistake that a lot of people make, is they'll get 300-400 reviews. They start seeing they get steady sales, and they don't run pay-per-click. They just stop. Mm-hmm. Because all of a sudden, like, why should I do it anymore? I don't need to. But here's the thing. The best way to rank for keywords inside of Amazon, in my belief, is to obviously have people type in a keyword and then find your listing and then buy through that listing, your listing. And then Amazon kind of has a little signal that says they just sold something through that keyword, right? So organically, that would be beautiful. But how can you force that? Well, you can advertise for that keyword, and it's the same difference. So if you're advertising in Amazon pay-per-click, their sponsored ads platform, which is so easy to use. And then from there, if you want to rank for keywords, it's just a matter of bidding enough to get on the first page, which a lot of times you can. And I'll even do that where I'll go in the red on the first month and a half, just to get the keywords generated through there. And I shared this example, I think it was in May, I shared it, where I spent $1,300 in pay-per-click. I got 110 or 120 sales from that, but I got 15 or 1,600 sales organically. And I believe that that's from doing that from day one, where I continually add. I spend, between $75 and probably $100 per day on Amazon pay-per-click, even though I'm doing the numbers that I'm doing. And that's just a steady push of those keywords and constantly branching out and building out how many more keywords. It's the same thing you guys have talked about, for forever. It's like taking that blog, and you're normally going for those seed keywords, but in the end, you're really ranking for thousands of all of these miscellaneous keywords, and that's what's bringing you most of your traffic.
And how do you find your keywords?
Great question. Okay, there's a couple different things you can do. First off, what I've done is I'll take the web URL of my competitor. I'll go over to Google AdWords Planner and I'll just go and punch in the website field. And then I'll just go ahead and I'll get ideas that way. So those aren't ones that are technically being searched for, but it's a great way to get ideas. And then I'll just take those, I'll bring them into Amazon pay-per-click, and I'll just run a campaign with those in there. So there might be 800 keywords in there. And I'll put like a 75-cent bid, maybe $25 a day, and I'll run that for a week. And just for people to know, when you're running Amazon pay-per-click, their reporting, their data is about 2 to 3 days behind. So, usually you're not going to see any sales on a keyword for at least 2 or 3 days, depending. But that's the other beautiful thing is they tell you the keywords that you're getting impressions for, the ones that are getting clicks, and the ones that are getting sales. So immediately you can see what is the winners and what are the losers, and then you can just pause the losers and scale the bigger, the better ones. The other thing that I like to do is I run an auto campaign. So I'll just fire up an auto campaign, which is really easy to do. And then I'll let that run for a week, like 7 days. And then what I'll do is I'll run the report. They allow you to download a report. And that report then says all of the keywords that Amazon put in front of your audience, all of the keywords that you showed up for, that Amazon felt that you should show up for. So because of that, now you in turn can take those keywords or that information and you can either drill down further with some of these top keywords, or here's another thing too that a lot of people don't do. You can see product ideas, because you might be showing up for certain products that they're putting your product in front of when you didn't even think of that. And you're like, oh, that could be another product. Maybe I should look into that. So that's the first thing I always tell people to do, is kind of like the auto campaign, and then, run it for 7 days and then look at the data. But here's the funny thing. I ran an auto campaign to do that exact same thing, and I still have that thing running like 6 months later. And the thing like right now is still, I think the ACOS, which is basically the average cost of sale, which the lower the better, I think is right 25% right now. And that's been like that for like 6 months. So I just have like $25 or $50 on that campaign, and I just let it kind of go on autopilot. And so that's kind of like the basic ways to do it. There is a couple of different advanced things if you want to talk about those as well.
Yeah, no, we're all about talking about a little more advanced. What else you got for finding those things?
All right, another tool. Have you heard of simple.keyword? I think it's simplekeywordtool.com. Let me make sure I'm giving you the right.
I don't think I've heard of that one.
All right, this is going to be a value bomb for you and your listeners. All right.
Awesome.
Okay, it's simple.keywordinspector.com.
Okay.
It's got to have the dot in there. So simple.keywordinspector.com. And what this basically is, now this is one of those things that may work in the future and it may not. But basically what it does is you take your listing or your competitor's listing, you take the ASIN, which is basically the identification number that Amazon gives the listing, and you put that into this particular tool. Now, this tool, I believe right now it's like you buy credits. And if you buy credits, you can run a certain number of these searches. But basically what it does, and I don't know how it does it, but it does work. And I've got people that are really big into pay-per-click that swear by it. But basically you take your ASIN, you put in there, and it'll do a reverse keyword search. So this will tell you the keywords that particular listing is ranking for, that have been searched for in Amazon. Okay. Now,
awesome.
That's what you do. Okay, so you can do this with 3-4 different, competitors if you want to. But here's the other thing that a lot of people don't think of doing, and this is something that it really, really is going to show you the growth of your listing. You want to do that with your own listing. Like you guys right now that you guys are kind of in this thing and you're kind of in the early stages, take your ASIN, run it through that tool. Take that, stick it on the shelf for a month. Do all of the pay-per-click stuff that you want to do to kind of build out your keywords. So you're going to start ranking for these keywords. Then in a month later or 3 weeks later, however long you want to wait, go back, take your ASIN, your listing, do the same exact thing, and then see how many more keywords you're ranking for now. So now you can see that I was ranking for 700. Now I'm ranking for 1400. Cool. Now I'm really building this thing out. So that's what I do on a regular basis. But then I also will take that and I'll drop them into a campaign. I'll take like $25 for the day, 75 cents on a starting bid. And then from there, I'll let the numbers tell me if I should keep it or if I should trim it or if I should, scale it. So that's like that strategy. Now, one little tip here, and I know this because I've done this. If you go ahead and you put your a campaign together, and let's say that it's not getting any clicks, it's not getting any impressions, it's probably because you're not bidding high enough. So if you start at 75 cents, you might then have to say the next day, let me bump it to 85 cents. I'll give that another day. Then if that doesn't work, let me bump it to 95 cents. If that doesn't work, let me keep increasing it until you start to get traffic. That's one way of doing it. The other way to do it is this is the way that I've done it because I'm impatient. I start at $5 on my bid. I might only pay $1.85. I might only pay $1.10, but I want to get on first page like day one. So I put $5 up there. Again, I put the cap at like $25, so I can't spend more than $25. And then instantly I'll start scaling back. Then I'll go to $4, see if I still get the same amount of traffic or the same amount of impressions. Then I'll go to $3. And then I'll keep going until I stop getting the traffic. And then I'll just bump it one up. So I know where the threshold is a lot quicker because I'm going to instantly get traffic like on day one. I don't have to go the other way. But either way, we'll do the same thing.
Yeah, no, those are some great tips. And just listening to your advice here gets me fired up and gets me thinking about, all right, there's some other things that I need to be doing and that I could be doing. So I appreciate the tips there. And this is kind of a personal question for my business, but anybody listening in that has a struggling product, what are some things that they can do to sort of jumpstart that? Because I have my first product. It's actually doing very, very well. It's exceeded my expectations, as of, sort of recording this podcast. I think yesterday it did $700 in revenue.
Nice.
And it's been fairly close to that, between $400 to $800 in revenue per day.
Great.
Just that one product, and amazing. It's sort of just taken off on its own. But my second product that, I just put out there, it's been how long, Perrin? Week and a half, 2 weeks?
Yeah, something
like that. We haven't sold any units yet. And so it's struggling a little bit. I will say that we haven't fully gone through our launch period. We've just been so busy with other things that we haven't gotten the reviews yet. We haven't done any pay-per-click. We haven't done, a lot of those things that you recommended. So maybe we just need to do that.
Yeah. I think so. I think that it comes down to doing that type of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, part of it is, and I guess we'll find out once we finally go through that initial launch process that we just haven't got to yet. But I'm a little worried that our product isn't targeted enough. It's sort of hard to describe without showing you the product.
Sure.
Just that there's not a, you talk a lot about garlic presses.
Yes.
Yes. You can't just type in garlic press and find my product, because if you typed in that main keyword garlic press, whatever, there's going to be 1,000 products and mine's going to be way at the bottom.
Right.
Just because there's weird variations of this product. So I'm a little worried that I didn't target my product enough. But I guess my question is, do you have any additional tips if somebody does find that they have a struggling product? What can they do, and what should they be looking at to improve the sales of that product?
Yeah, well, again, I think it comes down to like the depth of that product, right? And again, if you can tell me that, there's a specific, like, are there products right now that are like your exact product or very similar that are selling?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
There are.
Okay.
Not my exact product, and that's where it comes, that's where it's kind of weird to explain.
Yeah.
But there's certainly products that are selling very, very well that are almost exactly like mine.
Okay. Yeah. And then, so from there, again, I think that it comes down to right away would be pay-per-click. And that's going to tell me a lot. So first off, you may want to just run the auto campaign to kind of pull back some data to see what Amazon would recommend or that they would put in front of your audience or your market. And then kind of you can drill down and dig down in there. I mean, I do believe that in the beginning, it's all about sales. And a lot of people will say, well, do a blast of like 100 units to get rid of them. And I don't necessarily think that everyone has to do that. I definitely think it helps for getting the reviews, but I don't believe that you have to do that to start the sales process. I think pricing low and then doing pay-per-click is another strategy that I think would work really well. Again, you're sacrificing profits in the beginning to get velocity, to get the ball rolling. And like I said, I mean, I think if you priced it lower and then you also did pay-per-click, I think that you would see sales, unless we're talking about a product that's seasonal. Maybe it's seasonal and the traffic just isn't there. So that would be my first recommendation, especially because you're telling me that you're not really doing pay-per-click. So I'd be like, all right, your homework assignment, do, exactly what we just talked about, and then come back and tell me what you did in a week, because I think that you're going to get information and data. And then from there, you're also going to be able to throw some money at it. And I would price it right. I would definitely price it to sell.
Yeah, I think part of it is that we've been a little bit spoiled, or maybe got a little bit lucky with our first product, right? Because it sold well on its own. I mean, I got some initial reviews, friends and family, and that was almost, we did get some other reviews as well, and that was about it, and it's just taken off. Whereas the second product, we were just expecting to be exactly like the first.
Right.
And we never did pay-per-click on the first product, still haven't. But I think we probably need to on the second. It's just going to take a little bit more effort to get it jump started, if you will.
Now, is the one product related to your second product?
They are in the exact same category, yes.
Okay, so I mean, would someone buy the one product and the other product, do you think?
Probably, I don't know, Perrin. Probably not.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like the same product, right?
Okay.
So they're both garlic presses.
Right.
But one's for jumbo garlics and the other one's for really small garlics.
Gotcha.
I don't know.
Well, because the reason why I'm asking is because inside of your Amazon listing, you have your promotions tab. And within that promotions tab, you can create an external promotion that you can promote your other product in there by having a discount to it or whatever. So the traffic that you're getting on the one product could also help push the other product.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. There's the promotional field. If you go back in on your coupons, where you can create your own coupons and stuff and discounts, you can do that. And then you can link up that other product so it pushes that other product.
No, that's a good idea. I actually didn't know about that, but it may not work for, promoting the second product.
And that's why I asked that, yeah.
But I do have a third product that I think it would work very well for.
Okay. Yeah.
To do that. So I will keep that in mind. May try that out.
Definitely.
Very cool.
Definitely.
Yeah. Awesome. So what about scaling a product, and specifically outside of Amazon.com, whether that's Amazon International or going full e-commerce? Have you thought about that? What are your plans to scale your products?
Yeah, it's not really to go out in that particular into that space as of right now. I'm a believer of trying to really doing the 80-20, right? I mean, again, trying to spread yourself in too many different directions to me is just you'll get results, but it'll be little results. So until I feel like I've expanded as much as I can in the U.S. because that's going to have the most traffic, then that's really, I guess, my strategy is to try to really build this out, because I haven't even begun in my estimation, because it's like you're saying, like your first product is doing really well, but I think you could probably do even better if you focused on it and really pushed the Amazon pay-per-click and stuff. I think you can maybe, who knows, you could even double that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so rather than trying to go out in the UK market and trying to get all that worked out, and focus on the one that's already working or the other products that could complement it versus jumping over into another market. That's just my, that's just kind of my, thing.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So you're going to focus, Amazon.com, scaling the products that you currently have as much as possible. That totally makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the other part of that is just scaling is it just then creating new products?
Yeah, creating new products. My goal is to have, and I documented this too, is like, in 12 months, I wanted to have 5 products selling. At the time, I wanted 5 products doing 20 units a day. I've since changed that, but it looks like I'm going to have more products than I anticipated. So again, goals are great, but they're also meant to be changed and pivoted and all that stuff. But as of right now, I mean, I'm currently, like I said, I've got, if you counted the variations, it's kind of like I'm up to like 6 products. But I also have another product, which I'm in the middle of right now of sampling and then getting that underway. And that product there, I'm really excited about because I think that I could do like probably 4 other products that could be spinoffs of that. So really, it's just about that. It's about trying to find more SKUs that you could do 10 units a day, without that much work.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. So another topic that I want to talk about is we mentioned a little bit earlier, reinvesting profits into the business. And I am finding that this is a very capital intensive business.
Yeah.
Even though I've got, now I'm doing a few $1,000s a month or whatever, I'm not actually seeing any of that money. It's not coming into my pocket because I'm just turning right around and buying more inventory, or now that I've got a second and third product, buying inventory for those products. So, it's not a cash cow in the sense that I'm peeling off cash off this business. How do you view that? At what point will you start taking profits from the business? Have you started taking profits from the business? What can people expect as far as when can they actually live off of this business?
Yeah, and that's a great question. I mean, I think it's with any business, right? If you own a restaurant, you're always going to have to be buying inventory. You got to buy, knives, forks. You got to, if you have paper and plastic, that is, or, you got to buy your meat. You got to buy all that stuff, right? So I think it comes down to the balance as far as like, how far do you want to go with this until you start pulling? And I think at that point, you almost got to come up with your own threshold. But I mean, me personally, like I am starting to take some of the profits out, but I'm still able to, because what I'll do is let's say I order 2,000 units. It takes about 25 to 30 days for me to get those. And once I get those, I'm ready to replenish again with another 2,000. So because of that, I'm always taking money in and then I'm applying for the new inventory. But then when I do a new product, it's going to take some of that capital to get that product going. And then I have to kind of repeat that process. So it's going to be a little bit longer than I start pulling. But I would say if people in their heads said probably like, and again, it's different for everyone. Like I get some people that say, I just want to make an extra 1,000 a month. Well, it's different for you. But for me personally, like the 6-month mark was kind of like my goal. And I have since done that. But I still am, like I said, I'm releasing new products. So because of that, I am reinvesting more of that. So I think it's just it's a personal thing. But I think if you were just doing like you just launched that product, you could just continue to just replenish and then make profit and then just walk away. And then that would be your one little side income if you wanted to do that. So you could literally be pulling money off the table right now. But
very true.
But you're choosing to actually reinvest because you want to expand. So it's really a personal preference. But you could literally do it after you start making profit and just reinvest the money to buy more inventory and then sell. Because you're making 40 to 50% margin.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. I guess I'm more ambitious in the sense that I can roll back everything into the business just because I do have other businesses that I take my salary from, my income from outside of Amazon. And so I'm in a lucky position, I guess, if you will, that I can reinvest my profits. And that's what I've been doing because I see a ton of potential to scale this business. I mean, I'm still very early on, and unfortunately I don't have as much time as I would like to put into this business, but I do see over the next 6 to 12 months, this becoming a much larger and larger piece of my overall business. At least I hope so.
Yeah, no, I get it too. I mean, it's like, you've got yourself going in a lot of different directions. I mean, and I do too, but I think also that's part of being an entrepreneur where you're trying to diversify your income streams, which I think we all should be, because let's face it. I mean, Amazon is Amazon, right? Google is Google. It's like, if you put all your eggs into that basket, you could be waking up in the morning and being like, wow, my account just got taken down because of what, but you can't even explain it. And they're just trying to clean things up, and who knows, why it happened. And then all of a sudden your business goes down overnight. So, I think that you got to think about the long term, what you want out of this, but also the money that you make in this, invest it back in, but also then start thinking about your external platforms and stuff like that. Like, I know you recently just had on Steve Chu, which I just interviewed on my show as well, about e-commerce, because I think it's important for people to then take it to that that next level of actually bringing people or having people find you on an e-commerce site, and then that can actually secure a little bit more of your brand and your product, but it's a little bit further down the line. Now you guys, because you guys come from, building authority sites and niche sites and stuff, that's kind of where you're heading, and I think that's smart because now you're securing that. And it's if Amazon did go away, it would stink, but you would still have another platform that you could sell your stuff on and hopefully have stuff ranking by that time.
So let's dive into that just a tiny bit. So you have had your hands in all types of businesses. You've run a brick and mortar portrait studio. You kind of took that same idea and started a service / e-commerce business online, and now you're doing Amazon FBA. So maybe let's talk about the pros and cons, or where you would go if you were just a beginner. Is one easier than the other, and that sort of thing?
Yeah. Well, it comes down to like your expertise and kind of your comfort level. I mean, I've always been kind of a teacher in a sense. I mean, not formally, but, I've always been kind of one to, just talk about what I've done, and people have always kind of gravitated to that. So I don't find that hard, but some people it's hard to teach. So me personally, starting all over again, because I know the online space, it would be not probably necessarily Amazon as my main income. I would probably start just looking at how I could build something where I could then turn around and teach it. But with that being said, Amazon, for the everyday person that doesn't know a lot about internet marketing or online space, it's the easiest way to get started, in my opinion. It does require capital because you have to put money up, but it's the easiest way because there's already a revenue stream of, there's a revenue stream of money, and all you need to do is get in front of that in some way and dip your hand in the river. So I look at it like it's the easiest way. And I hate to say easiest because it's not easy. I mean, it takes work, it takes research, it takes guts, it takes all of that stuff. But if I was, and I've got friends that ask me, how can I go out and just make a few extra $1,000s? I'd be like, go to Amazon, start selling on Amazon. Even if you're not going to build a big brand around it, just go ahead and find a product you think you could sell, and you can start making some money, relatively soon. I mean, within 3 to 4 months, you could start, doing, some significant volume if you did what I'm saying. So I guess for me, it's different because I come from a little bit of a different background, but, and because of what I've known and what I've learned through this entire process. But for the person just starting, or someone that just wants to add another line to their revenue stream, Amazon, I mean, it's to me, it's a huge opportunity. And I think that it's not going anywhere. Yes, is it going to become maybe a little bit more saturated with private labelers? It is, but it's just going to make us become more creative and offer better services, better support, all of that stuff. And it's just going to force us to be a better, seller is really what I think.
Yep, absolutely. So we've covered quite a bit here today, from finding a product to sell, doing all the analysis on your competitors, to then launching that product and doing PPC. Before we wrap things up, are there any big ideas that you'd like to share with people, or final tips that we haven't talked about already that you think we should have covered?
No, I mean, there's a ton we can go into, but
right.
But I mean, I think the biggest thing for people is to really just understand how it works. And I think if people could wrap their heads around it, it's not about just taking a product that's selling and putting it up there and walking away from it. I mean, sometimes that can work, but for the most part, you're going to have to put something behind it. And if you understand what Amazon wants and you feed Amazon what it wants, I mean, their algorithm, if you give it what it wants, then it's really a simple process. And it's really as simple as sales and reviews. And why reviews? Reviews don't necessarily make you rank, which I do think they could play a role into it, depending on the caliber of the reviews that you get, which is a whole nother topic. But, reviews create conversions, which is like, social proof, which we talked about. It's like, you go into someone and saying, hey, who painted your house? I like the job they did. And you give them that referral. It's the same as like an Amazon review. It gives that product credibility. So reviews will increase your conversion rates. So if you increase your conversion rates, that means you've generated more sales. And if you generated more sales, it's generally through keywords, because people don't go to Amazon necessarily and look at a category. They type in a keyword, garlic press. Right? Stainless steel garlic press. They're going there and they're searching for that one thing. And then, so, really, it's that though. That's really the formula to it. Is sales, reviews, sales. Sales is going to generate the keyword ranking. And then the more you rank for keywords, the more sales you're going to get. The more sales you get, the more reviews you're going to get. The more reviews you get, the more sales you're going to get. And it just keeps going round and round and round. That's my philosophy on that right there. So that would be my only thing. And the other thing is just take action. So many people, they sit there and I don't know, is this the right one? I mean, how many emails I get every single week? Scott, what do you think of this one? Is this a good? They want me to pick it for them. It's really a gut thing as well. You got to just, you know what? Just if you think it's a good product, you think you could sell it, go for it. Don't buy a ton at first. Maybe just sample it, test it out, and see what happens. And just take action, because you're going to learn from it in the process and probably make a little bit of money.
Yep, great advice. That's one thing that I would just like to echo is take action. Absolutely. Once people start actually going through the steps, taking some action, that's where the real learning process comes into play. I mean, here on the podcast and through blog posts, we share tips, and certainly you can learn a lot by reading and listening, but it's not till you go and get your hands dirty and start taking that action that the true learning, at least for me, and I know for a lot of listeners, that's when it takes place. It's when you go out and actually do it. So we appreciate the tips that you've shared here on the podcast. Other than sending people over to theamazingseller.com, where would you like to send people so that they can follow along with you?
Yeah, I mean, right now I do a live workshop once a week as well. Right now, currently I'm doing one a week, and I basically just break down the entire process. It's my 5 phases, as I call them. It's basically product research, product sourcing, the pre-launch phase, the launch phase, and then the promotions phase. And I break those down on the workshop, and then I also answer live Q&A at the end. And basically, I do that once a week. It's a way that I can kind of connect kind of more visually with my audience, my podcast audience. And yeah, I have another guy on there that helps me with the live Q&A, the chat and stuff, Chris Schaefer. We do those once a week. And again, I'm just putting out content on the podcast. So people that want to check that out, there's a ton of content there as well. So yeah, it would be theamazingseller.com/workshop if you're interested in checking that out. And there will be the most, latest or the current one coming up that I'll be doing. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That's what I got for you.
Perfect. That's perfect. Awesome. So if people want to follow along, they can do that. theamazingseller.com/workshop if they want to join that workshop. But yeah, overall, just thank you again. We appreciate the great tips that you've shared to everybody. I know it's motivational to me to go out and sort of give me a kick in the butt to do the things I know I need to be doing, but hopefully to people listening out there as well. So
yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you having me on, and nice to be able to sit down and talk with both you guys. Maybe one day we could sit at a table and actually talk. That'd be cool.
Oh yeah, great.
Absolutely, anytime. So yeah, we appreciate it very much. Everybody listening in, best of luck to your business.